Hello, my name is Rose Chandless. I am the founder of Winslow Shetland Sheepdogs, and I've been breeding and showing this wonderful breed for the last 45 years. Now, for those of you who are just starting out, I thought perhaps I could get started by telling you how I developed my breeding program, how I developed my skills, and in doing so, you may find similar things that have happened to you that you could capitalize on them, and then again you may learn how to avoid some of the pitfalls that I learned from and achieve even more success. You might want to take notes because there's an awful lot to learn. Anyway, let's get started. Dogs have been a part of my life since I was 7 years old. In the beginning, I had a Samoyed, I had an Irish setter, and they were okay as family pets, but I wanted something more. So eventually my best dog and my best friend was a collie named Duchess. Duchess was with me until my late teens. We shared many memories and adventures, but after school was done and I was on my own, then marriage, and of course the kids came along, I wanted my children to share in the experience of having a dog in their life. Well, at the time, RHOA restrictions prohibited large dogs, so I thought a small collie would probably work. Our first Shetland sheepdog, Honey, arrived in our household back in 1974. From the start, Honey showed me her versatility, her intelligence, and her adaptability. She was absolutely the right breed for our family. Honey was my oldest son's protector and companion on his busy and cold newspaper route every morning when we lived in Maine. And for my youngest son, who was then 3, she was his only playmate in a neighborhood void of preschool children. Honey was a very willing companion, and partook in unending games of kickball, wagon rides, snack tables, enjoyments. In fact, Honey had her own chair at the table. When my husband returned from a long day at the office, he would loosen his tie and fall back into his easy chair, allowing his hand to drift over the side of the chair, down to Honey's waiting body. She would lick his fingertips as if to say, "It's okay, you're home now." However, although each family member had their own rituals with Honey, Honey's closest relationship was with my daughter, Michelle. Honey was Michelle's 4-H project, her junior showmanship project, as well as our introduction to the fascinating world of dog shows. It was this introduction that spurred my daughter on to seek a true show dog. However, Honey was not an admirer of the ring. In fact, she found it rather boring. So we traveled to every show and every match within driving distance, talking to all the owners and breeders of the Shelties, hoping to find some dog that would fill Michelle's needs and be able to show in the breed ring. Soon we did locate a breeder who had a very lovely stud dog. That breeder said that if we bred Honey to that stud dog, we would get the dog we needed. Honey was offering her virtues, and of course, add the stud dog's virtues, and voila, you would get a show dog. Well, Honey came into season, and we took her up to the stud dog. However, Honey had her own ideas on the matter. Honey was used to her own rituals, like sleeping in the bed with Michelle, eating the same time as the family in the kitchen, going for walks around the neighborhood, stopping at friends for a quick game of kickball, going to my son's baseball games and cheering him on when he was at bat. This sudden change in location and manner of care was totally unacceptable to Honey. The breeder called to say that Honey was refusing to be bred, snapping at any approach by dog or handler, and refusing to eat or socialize with any kennel mates. Honey would back into a corner of the run and snap at any approaching dog. So the breeder called to say, "Come and pick her up." "Well, not all Shelties should be bred," she remarked to me. Disappointed, we looked around her kennel, and of course we found a year-old female that could possibly fit our need. I thought the female resembled a fox, but what did I know? I wasn't the expert. So we hopefully brought that young bitch home and continued the search in show dog data. That search, while attending all breed matches, led us to Mrs. Charlotte McGowan, who was a well-known breeder of rural or Shelties and respected AKC confirmation judge. Upon making our inquiry to Mrs. McGowan, she responded in a very matter-of-factly manner. "It is very common to buy a show dog, but far more noble to breed one." Well, after informing Mrs. McGowan of our dismal initial efforts to breed Honey, she offered to assist us in giving her a valuation of the dogs we owned. As she viewed our latest purchase, Charlotte whispered to me, "Bury that one." And about Honey, she said, "Take this one home where she belongs." Her closing comments were, "When you get serious and place these two appropriately, call me. I'll help you find what you need." Well, the ride home was very quiet, as Mrs. McGowan's words repeatedly rang in my ears. I was offended. We loved these dogs. They were like family. So, with a little more thought, common sense started taking over. I realized that I had asked for her opinion, and I got it. Nothing to be upset about. You either take the advice or you don't. So we placed the young bitch with a loving family, retired Honey to our couch, and called Mrs. McGowan again. Within a month, she found a year-old sable bitch in New Jersey, and sired by champion Roar Mickey Dazzler, and produced by a champion Lingard Select Bruce daughter, both proven and well-known sires. The owners insisted on a strict purchase breeding contract. In lieu of cash, seller makes all decisions regarding the first litter. Breeder gets pick of the first litter, all expenses paid by the buyer, including all board and keep until seller chooses their pup. Title remains with the seller until all contract terms are fulfilled. I agreed upon delivery of said bitch to my home. Well, on the assigned day, the seller drove in the rain 5 hours to my home in Massachusetts. Upon his arrival, I observed that this Sheltie was very thin, quite a bit underweight. She was ungroomed, including mats, barely leash trained, and not well socialized at all. I remarked quietly to my husband, "She goes back." My husband replied, "Rose, he drove 5 hours in the rain, all this way. Couldn't you spend a little more time with him?" So, reluctantly, I agreed, and I waved my hand at the man to say, "Okay, let's see her move." Wow! The seller proceeded to gate the dog across our large yard. Her reach and drive was extraordinary. Her effortless glide across the yard with such ease and grace, lengthening her stride with every step. The phrase, "poetry in motion," came to mind. Now, being a horsewoman myself for many years, seeing that kind of canine movement was jaw-dropping. "We will take her," I said, and I quickly signed the agreements. So the next 12 months, my daughter trained, conditioned, and socialized our newest family member. Michelle and her new student attended matches and classes with continuing steady progress. This young bitch's second heat was upon her sooner than we all expected, forcing our hunt for the perfect stud dog into high gear. There were several top sires during that time that came to our attention. Bankery Reflection, a Rom sire, had a beautiful dark sable, clean head type, and symmetrical balance. Champion Hastor's Peter Pumpkin, also Rom sire, offering a rich red coat, sweet expression, and lovely head. Champion Rockwood's Back Talk, with correct head and that hard-to-get ear placement. A striking outline with dark sable coat. And of course, the CIL Shelties. They were just magnificent. Very impressive. The sweetest faces with rich red coat, flowing outlines, and that special air of sophistication. Just to name a few. These were just some of the dogs that set their mark in the breed during that time. There were other noteworthy dogs, but too many to mention in this interview. So many pretty stud dogs. As we looked around a local dog show, Michelle found a dog that had what she called that special look. She dragged me over to see this remarkable dog. Lance, as he was known, was freestanding on the grooming table with that unmistakable look of royalty. Every hair appeared to be separately groomed and falling into proper place. A sweet face that also had that air of superiority. We made a point to look up the sires of the dogs that we liked at the shows. We would compare their virtues to the sires and to see if those sires passed on those virtues. And Lance was definitely a dominant sire. Our researches had proved that a pretty stud dog doesn't always pass along his virtues. It was most helpful that stud dog progeny proved the worth of the stud. Still, there were so many dogs to pick from. So another call was made to Mrs. McGowan. And wouldn't you know, the one Mrs. McGowan picked out for our pretty little bitch that she found was the same dog that Michelle discovered at the show. Champion Romaine Sport and Life. Well, after some discussion, the sellers, our partners in crime, inbreeding, agreed. Lance put the expression back in the breed. Lance did appear to pass along his correct eye and head type that consistently produced the sweetest expression in nearly every offspring. The Danforths were founders of Romaine Shetland Sheepdogs. I met them at the show that day when we first saw Lance. That initial meeting over the years developed into an even stronger relationship. Even after the passing of George and Tat, that friendship bonding is still carried on today through their daughter, Michelle. The day of whelping finally arrived, and it was June 1978. 5 pups wiggled their way into the homemade box filled with my best towels. This being Michelle's project, she assisted with the birth of each one, carefully identifying all markings, and on that day, my daughters very certainly selected and named her choice. He was the last born. She named him Joshua. I reminded her of our contractual obligations. The breeder had first pick. "That's his name," she said. My husband remarked the pup, even at this early stage, had an air of royalty and sophistication right from birth. So the prefix Sir Joshua was added. Miss McGowan suggested that we obtain a kennel name worthy of this pup, And since we resided in Massachusetts for 41 years as part of the late Governor Winslow's old estate, we thought it fitting to use the old estate name, Winslow. Well, at 10 weeks of age, the sellers reviewed the litter as agreed. They remarked that the male was pretty, but bigger than the rest. So they took the pick bitch, signed all the papers to me, and went off on their way. At that moment, my life had changed forever. For the next 15 months, my daughter trained and conditioned our family newest member. However, it became time for my daughter to go off to college. And again, at Mrs. McGowan's suggestion, we asked Linda Moore, a well-known professional Sheltie handler, to show Joshua at his AKC title, which he finished in a handful of shows, which included a Canadian championship. Now, at this time, Linda Moore was already committed to another special. She asked me to wait a year prior to specialing Sir Joshua. At this time, I had worked in the private sector, government, and politics for the past 18 years. I knew administration had been elected, and I thought this would be a good time for a change in careers. My two oldest children were off in college. It was 1980, and perhaps I could try my luck at breed handling. Why not, I thought. I always loved dogs, and I was a licensed advanced equitation instructor. I had trained dozens of horses. We even showed very competitively, both in halter and performance. Linda made it look so easy as she glided around the ring. How hard could it be, I thought. Don't worry, my awakening was coming. Well, I went again to every match within driving distance. I attended all the local shows and offered my help to the professional handlers. If they would just teach me handling, I was willing to help them out. I stayed late and I arrived early when the handlers got there. I would show up at 6:30 in the morning with a tray full of coffees and a box full of donuts. I'd offer the coffee to the professionals, and I asked if they needed any help. I would say, I want to learn. Whenever there was no show or no match nearby, I would drive the 2 hours up to New Hampshire to Tatsuko Danforth's home. She would teach me how to groom this thick-coated Sheltie and make him look spectacular. George would set up the ring in the front yard, put a table up front, using lawn chairs as corners of the ring. He would teach me table exams and ring patterns. And when I finally did enter a show, I found my pro handlers that I had been helping watching my performance. They were waiting for the end of the class to offer their comments, good and bad, of the skills and techniques that they had taught me. As we improved, my mentors said, get out there, see what else is out there, and learn from it. So I did. I started attending cluster shows in all parts of the country, observing how the handlers maneuvered their dogs, how they set them up, how they showed them to the judge. Studied and took notes on all the grooming of the collies and Shelties. Not one of these professionals ever asked for any monetary exchange for their time and efforts, and I will be forever grateful to the many pro handlers and breeders who freely gave me their time, advice, and efforts. Without their help, I never would have achieved the success I enjoyed. In particular, there were two professionals, Ruth Lane and Arnold Red Lane, as he was known, both AKC judges and breeders of the champion Shetland sheepdogs and labs. Their dogs were shown successfully in both the U.S. and Canada. Our initial meeting was at a match where I was showing Sir Josh as a young dog. Ruth approached me and she admired him and wanted to breed to him. Ruth took the time to teach me the techniques of breeding as well as raising very well-adjusted puppies. Over the years, we developed a lasting friendship and formed a working partnership with breeding and showing under the name Winslow Summit. Although the pups we bred included Century Club winners, multiple Best in Show, Best in Specialty winners, and of course, Best of Breed winners, it developed into almost a most memorable partnership, Ruth and I. Ruth did the breeding and the whelping, and I did all the showing and the training. Ruth and Red, now past, will always be special people to me. There were just so many other helpful professionals throughout those early learning years to name in this short interview. However, in their honor, I have made every effort to pass along what I had learned to those just starting out or in need of assistance, as those handlers did for me. The Winslow Way was produced in a 3-part DVD series and sold all over the world, to my surprise. Unfortunately, it's sold out now. I had it reordered 3 times and was still sold out. Maybe someone will lend you theirs. I have performed seminars called the Winslow Way all over the country, instilling professionalism in every lesson to help perfect the art of dog showing. I teach leadership with respect, balance, focus, transferred energy, footfall timing, and light lead contact. As one of my mentors taught me, if there's a jerk on the lead, then you know for sure there's a jerk on the lead. Another commented, dogs are pack animals, looking to be led by a leader, not dominated by a dictator. So although every dog I showed had its own uniqueness, there were several dogs that did stand out. Recently, one dog I bred, who finished his title in the U.S. and Canada, that's him behind me, also went to Australia and was #1 Sheltie for several years running in Australia. He was the first Sheltie to achieve a championship breed title in 3 countries on 2 continents. I achieved over 100 Best of Breeds awards with 5 other individual dogs, all awarded the honor of ASSA Century Club membership. 3 of these dogs I bred, and currently the only ASSA breeder to do so. All were group and specialty winners as well, with 2 capturing Best in Show wins, and 1 was the Quaker Arts Awards winner. Best in Breed in the country for that year, and another was #2 for a different year. 3 were ASSA National Specialty Merit Award winners, and 1 was ASSA National Specialty Best of Opposite Sex winner at 13 years of age. I was not one to count how many dogs I finished to their title, but my hard-working assistants, they would always enlighten me when we passed 50, when we passed 75, and then 100. However, I stopped them from counting, as my mentors taught me. It's not the quantity that counts, it's the quality. Of our AKC champions of record, several were ROM awards, that's Register of Merit, as well as continuing on those quality virtues to their next generation. However, there was one dog that did capture my heart from the very start, and that was American-Canadian champion Sir Joshua Winslow, the ROM sire as well. Josh proved his quality both in the show ring by his record and in the breed by his progeny. Josh was a fantastic showman. He truly loved to hear the roar of the crowd. The louder the roar, the longer his stride and drive. Inheriting that sweet expression and head planes from his sire's line, he also inherited that jaw-dropping movement from his dam's line. It was a perfect blend, which Joshua in turn passed on to his get. His record as a sire is posted in the ASSA annual yearbooks, and is his record in the breed ring. Josh was not a kennel dog. He loved being at home, sitting with one of the kids watching TV and eating chips. He always slept at the side of my bed. After he retired, I continued handling. And when he saw me loading the van, he would jump into the passenger seat, look out the window with that excited expression, "Let's go!" That face would turn sad as I would remove him from the van, and yet turn happy again as it would shine through that window when I returned home from those late night drives. Yes, Josh was my once-in-a-lifetime dog. I hope you can breed one for yourself, so you can have your own memory album. My partner Ruth Lane and I believed in quality over quantity, as well as maintaining our kennel of dogs. We never kept more than 5 of our own dogs. In addition, I never kept more than 5 client dogs at one time. There are only so many hours in the day, and most are spent with our dogs. We never bred more than 2 litters a year, and all our Winslow champions, I think it's 38 last count, are directly descended from Joshua. Beginning with Joshua, there are 5 generations of Rom sires in his line. I am a strong advocate of careful line breeding, going out on the 3rd generation for strengthening virtues, correcting faults, and getting new blood, but still staying with the strong foundation. I use the Sea Isle line, but there are other lines that you may choose that would suit you as well. Find some mentors. Find a successful breeder, someone who's willing to give their time and efforts to you. They're willing to share what they know, what they've experienced. Don't bother them during the shows, but ask if you can visit them at the end of the day, or perhaps come to their home or at their kennel and learn more. Get the advice of several and select who you feel the most comfortable with. Ask questions and take notes. There is much to learn. Thank you for listening. I hope I have been helpful, and I wish you every success in this breed along with some memorable times. When you win, celebrate. And when you lose, analyze your performance to learn why you lost. Be confident in knowing there is always going to be another dog show coming up. Another opportunity to learn more. Never forget, a Sheltie does not care about the ribbons or trophies. They do care about pleasing their leader. Keep it fun for everyone, the dogs too. Always praise after every session. You will all enjoy it so much more. Now, I wish I could show you more pictures of the dogs I know you want to see. The Rob Roy, the Steppin' Out, the Razor Ruckus, but unfortunately, when I moved down here to North Carolina, I put all my dog stuff, all the pictures, all the ribbons we had, the Best in Show trophy, everything, even the ASSA medallions. We put them all in one box, which I thought was a good idea, keep it all contained so it wouldn't get lost. And unfortunately, that one box never made it here. And it was very hard to justify to the moving company the value of that box. After all, it was more mementos. It wasn't like you could sell it for anything. So they weren't willing to give us any compensation for it, understandably so. But I do have this. This is a copy of the memorial issue that they did for Sir Joshua from the Pace Setter. And some of you might remember the Sheltie Pace Setter. People used to call it the Bible at Shelties. But this was Joshua's movement. As you can see, it's extraordinary. It's just right by the book. Feet just off the ground. Not so high. Same distance from the front stride to the rear stride. Back level, head above the shoulder, tail below the hip. This is Sir Joshua here. This is Razor Ruckus, his son. And this, I believe, is Making Waves, which is Ruckus's son. Now, if you notice, all the heads are the same depth, same size, same wedge as the standard calls for. This is another Josh son, and if you notice, even at a different angle, the head is still the correct same wedge of a head. That's what you want to look for in its sire, that he's passing on the virtue that he has. Here's a family of Josh kids. This was Josh's grandson, and these are the children of his. If you notice, they all look the same. That's what you want to find in a stud dog: consistency. This dog is Artful Dodger, Champion Winslow Artful Dodger. That's the only picture I have of Rob Roy. This is Canadian Champion Domain Winslow sequel. She's a Josh granddaughter and great-granddaughter on both sides. But you can see the face and the structure is still there. She was a favorite of mine. That's Darla. She went to Australia as well. She had her Canadian championship, and she had 2 majors here in the States, but then she came in season and Australia called. This is David, Champion Winslow Copperfield, a Josh son. And more recent, this is a Josh grandson, Champion Milestone Winslow Skywalker, better known as Jedi. He won his first major at a specialty at 6 months of age. Just turned that day. And this was Contessa, Romaine Contessa. This day she went breed over specials, over champions, and she also went on to win the group. It was a very exciting day.
Cool.
Now this is Naomi Cohen, who is a well-known expert in the breed. And there's another Winslow dog. He was a young dog at that time. I don't think he was a year old. Poppy was way to go. Champion Winslow, way to go. If you see the sweet almond eye, the eye shaped like an almond. And this was Poppy's body shot. Very pretty dog. Any good move.
These are some examples of Winslow line breeding. Champion Sir Joshua of Winslow. Champion Winslow Artful Dodger. Champion Winslow Summit Rob. Champion Marwell Steppin' Out. Champion Winslow Summit. Notice the consistency in breed type. Champion Winslow Good to Go.
Thank you for listening. If you ever see me in any one of the shows, feel free to come up, sit, and we'll talk. Bye for now.